All right, now we move into what this war was for all of the people involved, and this is where we use the term total war, which is another reason why World War One was a different occasion. First of all, the age of imperialism was still around. You still had the remnants of that. Like before the war, colonies were a critical source of resources for the Europeans. That was amplified during the war. If you had colonies, you were seen as being prepared and able to fight an effective war in World War One. Colonial powers relied on the colonies for manpower and natural resources. Why did the colonies cooperate then? If they were, being forced to do this, well, in a lot of sense was that they were, if they cooperated, if they helped them win the war, if it goes well, hey, we helped you win this war, give us our freedom now. And so this truly made it a world war, where it was fought on many different areas. India worked on the front lines as treasure bearers and provided uniforms. Algerians fought for the French and attacked German colonies in Africa. Australia, New Zealand, and Canada all fought and died, especially the Aussies at Gallipoli. They have a holiday every year celebrating their loss of life at Gallipoli. And Japan attacked German holdings in China, hoping to benefit for it after the war. And the Ottomans won at Gallipoli, but lost Arabia due to the efforts of a British colonel, T.E. Lawrence, subject of the movie Lawrence of Arabia. And this set up and this became extremely pivotal in shaping the post-war world. All right, so that's extremely important to understand, and we'll talk about that in the next unit. And here's some great pictures that show all the things that went on there. Starting in the upper left, you see Algerians being encouraged to fight alongside the French. You see Indians firing a machine gun for the British. You see, I believe those are Central Africans fighting for the Germans. And you see the Japanese invading China. And the bottom right, I'm sorry, bottom left and the bottom right, those are Australian troops fighting for the British. And in the center, you see T.E. Lawrence. That's the actual man in full Arabian garb, fighting with the Arabians against the Ottomans. All right. So just picture that. But also on the home front, you had civilians being affected more so than any other war. Never before has so much been asked collectively of nations to help win this war, because it was seen as so much was at stake. Industrialized nations used their full resources to support and win the war. Basically, life was put on hold in a lot of ways to help win the war wherever you were. Conscription, draft, or forced enrollment was standard to all participants from 18. I believe in a lot of countries it depended on where you were, but it was usually about 45 was when men were expected to participate in the war. Um, Industrial production was controlled by governments, so that put a halt to capitalism, as had been used in the past. And that's the first time you see that as well. Positions made empty by soldiers were filled by women. Now, this, of course, becomes a bigger deal in World War II and is more publicized in World War II, but it happened in World War I as well. But in the United States, you're going to learn next year as well that many African Americans saw an opportunity for jobs by by going north during World War One to fill the need for industrial workers, and that was called the Great Migration um, during this time. Civilians were expected to take part in sacrificing everyday items to provide for the war effort. You eat less of things and buy certain things, only certain things. It's called rationing. It's one of those things. It's hard to recognize that in our world today, um, where we think that we can pretty much do what we want, um, and the government telling us to do anything, we really get angry and we get frustrated and all that stuff. And in this time, people did it. People bought in and said, okay, well, we don't eat meat on this day, and we do eat this kind of bread, and those kinds of things. Also, propaganda was used on all sides to create public support and raise funds for the war effort. And we're going to be talking a lot about propaganda here in this unit as well, and what that was. And basically, what propaganda was all about. Propaganda was all about giving, basically advertisement, selling the war effort, and saying that you don't need to question um, while we're fighting, you just need to look at this enemy as the bad guy, and this is the kind of things that they're known to do, and we need to win, and we need to be, supporting our country. And here's some example of that. You see a woman working in a factory here and doing a job that normally women would not be doing um, outside of work time. You see two pictures here of the Great Migration, one from a cover of a book, but also from a man that had migrated north and and found that there was still prejudice in northern cities as there were in the south. But that's just an example of the kinds of things that happen there. And then there's a ration poster there as well, basically saying don't waste your food, um, eat what the kinds of things that they're asking you to eat. Right? And that brings to a close this session.